Monday Night Raw delivered a segment that instantly changed the atmosphere surrounding the ongoing rivalry between Oba Femi and Bron Breakker. What began as another confrontation between two highly confident young stars quickly became something much more personal, especially after both men made it clear that they believe they belong at the very top of WWE. There was no need for an overly dramatic physical confrontation to make the segment memorable. Instead, the tension came from the words, the body language, and the feeling that neither man was willing to give the other even an inch. Breakker entered the situation with plenty of confidence and clearly wanted answers about where he stood in the future of WWE. Femi, however, appeared completely comfortable with the pressure. He did not act like someone trying to prove himself. He carried himself like someone who already believed he had earned his place. That contrast made the exchange even more interesting because Breakker was looking for recognition, while Femi seemed to believe recognition was already his. By the time the segment ended, the rivalry had moved beyond simple competition. It had become a battle over identity, ambition, and who WWE believes can become its next major superstar. Why Oba Femi's confidence matters. The biggest reason Femi's words carried so much weight is the momentum he has built around himself. His rise has been presented as one of the most important stories surrounding WWE's next generation of talent. The biggest turning point came at SummerSlam, where Femi was placed in a major spotlight against Brock Lesnar. Coming out of that encounter with a victory immediately changed the way fans looked at him. It was no longer simply about potential. Suddenly, Femi had a major accomplishment attached to his name, and that gave him a completely different level of confidence heading into Raw. Whether fans believe he is ready to become the face of the company or think he still has more to prove, there is no denying that WWE has positioned him as someone worth watching. That is exactly what makes his rivalry with Breakker so compelling. Both men represent youth, athletic ability, confidence, and enormous upside, but they approach that potential in very different ways. Femi is calm and deliberate, while Breakker often projects intensity and impatience. When those personalities meet, even a simple conversation can feel like a major confrontation. Bron Breakker wants his answer. Bron Breakker's frustration is understandable from his perspective. He has already established himself as one of WWE's most recognizable young performers, and he has spent considerable time competing at a high level. From Breakker's point of view, he has every reason to believe that he should be included in the conversation about WWE's future. So when another young star begins receiving enormous attention, it naturally creates a competitive environment. Breakker came to Raw wanting an answer to a question that has become central to this rivalry: who is really the future of WWE? It was not simply a question directed at Femi. It was also a statement about Breakker himself. He wanted everyone watching to understand that he believes his own accomplishments deserve to be recognized. Instead of allowing Femi to control the conversation, Breakker tried to force the issue into the open. The problem was that Femi seemed more than willing to answer. Rather than becoming defensive or trying to convince everyone of his value, Femi simply embraced the pressure and made it clear that he believed the answer was already obvious. Paul Heyman changes the conversation. Then Paul Heyman entered the picture, and the entire dynamic shifted. Heyman has always been effective at turning simple exchanges into much bigger stories, and this appearance was no different. Instead of immediately giving Breakker the response he wanted, Heyman challenged the question itself. He essentially turned the spotlight back toward Breakker and forced him to consider what his own position really was. That moment was important because Breakker had entered the ring expecting to control the conversation. Heyman made sure that did not happen. Then Femi appeared, bringing an entirely different kind of confidence with him. He did not need a long speech to make his point. His response was direct and dismissive, suggesting that Breakker was asking a question for which everyone already knew the answer. In Femi's mind, there was no debate. He believed he was the future, and he was not interested in pretending otherwise. That confidence made the exchange feel much bigger than ordinary wrestling trash talk. It felt like two future stars openly competing for the same position. The handshake says more than words. One of the most interesting details from the segment came after the match announcement. Heyman shook hands with Breakker and then extended that same gesture toward Femi, who accepted it. On the surface, it was a simple moment of professionalism, but given the history surrounding these characters, the visual carried much more meaning. Breakker had just spent the segment trying to establish himself as the man who deserved to be considered WWE's future. Femi had answered by confidently declaring that the position already belonged to him. Then Heyman stood between them, almost symbolically acknowledging both men while refusing to completely choose sides. For Breakker, that moment could easily feel frustrating because the spotlight he wanted was now shared with the very person he wanted to surpass. For Femi, however, it reinforced the idea that he had entered a new level of WWE competition. The handshake did not settle the rivalry. If anything, it made the upcoming match feel even more significant. Two different paths to the same goal. What makes this rivalry especially promising is that Breakker and Femi do not need to be identical for the story to work. Their differences are what make the matchup interesting. Breakker has the reputation, experience, and established presence of someone who has already been competing at a high level. Femi represents the rising star who is rapidly building momentum and confidence. Both believe they can become central figures in WWE, but only one can walk away from their upcoming match with a stronger argument. That creates a natural story without needing unnecessary exaggeration. The question is simple: can Breakker prove that his established reputation deserves to remain at the top, or will Femi continue his rapid rise and demonstrate that WWE's next era may belong to him? Fans now have a reason to watch closely because the answer will be determined inside the ring rather than through another microphone exchange. September 6 suddenly feels much bigger. The September 6 match now carries much more importance than it did before the Raw segment. It is not simply another contest between two talented performers. It has become a statement match for both men. Breakker has something to prove after being dismissed in front of the WWE audience, while Femi has an opportunity to back up his enormous confidence with another major performance. That combination creates the kind of tension that can turn a standard rivalry into one of the defining stories of a WWE season. Neither competitor appears interested in stepping aside, and neither seems willing to accept the idea that the other deserves the bigger spotlight. The conversation that began with a simple question about the future has now become a much bigger competition over who can actually live up to that future. When the bell finally rings in Atlanta, all the confidence, frustration, and anticipation surrounding this rivalry will have to translate into performance. The future is now the story. For WWE fans, that may be the most exciting part of this entire situation. Both Oba Femi and Bron Breakker are trying to establish themselves as major stars of the next generation, and their paths have now collided at exactly the right time. Breakker believes his accomplishments have earned him the right to be considered among WWE's future leaders. Femi believes his rapid rise has already answered that question. Neither side needs to convince the other through another long argument. The upcoming match gives them the opportunity to settle the debate where it matters most. Raw did not simply create another rivalry, it created a clear question that fans can carry into the next major event. Who will emerge with the stronger claim to WWE's future? For now, Femi has the confidence, Breakker has the motivation, and both have everything to prove. September 6th is no longer just another date on the WWE calendar. It is the night when two ambitious stars get the chance to show the world exactly where they belong.